It's great to to host a meetup so far from home and have this turn up. It's great. And thanks to the speakers for coming too. Today we have to my right Ronan Sanford. He's one of the developers at the Sandbox from Pixowl gaming company, and he's also the founder at Etherplay. So thanks, Ronan. Then we have Matthew Campbell, CEO and co-founder at Loom Network. Pretty cool stuff they're working on. Luciano Verdenasco, my partner and CTO from Experimental Blockchain Gaming Studio, and Skirmantas Januskas, CEO at DappRadar. The main idea of this panel was to have a grasp of what's going on in in the blockchain gaming industry, which is a pretty new but exciting industry. So we have a metrics guy, then an infrastructure guy, then some game developers. It should be like good for to just understand what's going on. I'm gonna first give you all a minute to introduce yourselves. Skirmantas, if you want to start.
Okay. 1, 2. Work. 1, 2, 1, 2. Okay, cool. Hey everyone, so I'm Skirmantas from DappRadar. I'm the CEO and a co-founder. And what we do, so we're tracking decentralized applications. We're dealing with lots of challenges like eliminating bots from the metrics. So if you have any questions or want to talk about all the tracking and metrics, come to me. Let's have a talk.
Great, thank you. Lucho?
Well, hello, I'm Luciano. I'm the CTO at Experimental, so if you want to talk about building games on the blockchain, you can come to me. At Experimental, we are building the first decentralized game on the blockchain. Strategy game on the blockchain, yeah. So, I don't know, that's basically, yeah.
Cool. So I'm Matthew. I'm a co-founder of Loom Network. We're kind of famous for crypto zombies, but we also do kind of L2 scaling. And we're also building our own game. We're building kind of like a Hearthstone style card game. So like we're kind of here with these guys too, kind of trying to build teams too.
Amazing.
Hi, I'm Ronan, lead blockchain architect at Pixowl, building the Sandbox, like an open platform for creator to trade their items and player to play them, basically.
Perfect. And well, my name is Matthias Nistenson, and I'm the CEO at Experimental. As Lucho said, we do blockchain games. We have a community of 300 people, backing us, mostly developers, investors, the whole thing. But it's a great community that we have testing the games and helping us review code and all this stuff. And well, yeah, let's get to it, right? The first question that I'm gonna ask is pretty basic. So what's a blockchain game and what's not a blockchain game? I think this is a discussion we've been having for a while, so I'd like to know what you guys think.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's lots of kind of blockchain games. I think it's better to be open and accept anything that use blockchain. But I mean, I think the main one is probably, or the most common one is asset ownership. But then there is also actually one of the first game like Hunter Coin and this kind where actually decentralized game. So that I think we should always keep in mind. The tech is maybe not ready, but with Loom and other things that could be there.
I'm going to take a different point of view. I think it's not a blockchain game unless the logic actually runs on the chain. There's a lot of projects where they just put coins and it's kind of like a centralized game, but like if the logic's not there, what are the assets have no value.
Yeah, I also agree with Matthew on this one, and I will take it like a step further and say it's not actually a blockchain game if you are not able to fork it away as a community. So if the game depends on the company that builds the game as well, it's not actually a decentralized game. It's just like some fancy word.
Yeah, my opinion is kind of similar, but I'm thinking about the token issuance should be decentralized, because otherwise owner can issue as much tokens as he wants. That doesn't make sense.
Great, yeah. Yeah, this is a discussion that everyone's been having, like, is it a blockchain game if you just put the assets there, or, yeah. Okay, so that's great. What do you think is the single top benefit of the blockchain for games? Like we know there are many, like four or five benefits we talked about all the time, but different people think differently. What do you think?
So for me personally, I love seeing real money games and this ability exactly like being able to earn money, spend money, and I mean that's the real money gaming is my top notch on blockchain games.
Oh well, for me, it's like more going back to the last point. It's to be able to build a game that can be run by the community and like improved by the community and be open source and just like keep growing without the need of a central entity managing it.
I think what I'm most interested in is the modability of the games, where we could have players actually upload new contracts onto the blockchain and alter the way the game's played for anybody else that wants to participate in it.
I mean, I kind of take all these points and agree with them, and but I will add, I think, interoperability. I think it's a very important feature. So basically, you could have this asset created by a game, but that can be used by other game, and maybe taking them in a completely different direction, as we saw, for example, with some game based on CryptoKitties, for example, Kitty Race, one example.
Great. And what happens? Let's say you develop a blockchain game and the company goes under. Like you go bankrupt. What should happen to that game and to that gaming community? Is there something that could happen differently to a traditional game?
Yeah, I mean, basically because, I mean, if it's a decentralized game, then the company, it doesn't matter at all. If it's a centralized game, then someone can pick up, I'm assuming, of course, it's open source, someone can pick up the game and continue in a different direction or in the same direction.
Yeah, I think as long as there's like enough economic availability that people run their own nodes of the game, I think the game can live on forever, essentially.
Yeah, this is one of the saddest parts of the games like that are mainstream right now. But yeah, it's mostly what Ron and Matthew said. I totally agree with that. Yeah.
I kind of have to agree. Like we had, and me personally, had some games that are just dead right now, and we would love to make them alive again, but we just can't because it's not open source and something. We can do that in blockchain games, I guess.
There's one thing you mentioned previously. You said that for you the top benefit is the play to earn part. To what extent do you think that's possible? Like, will gamers be able to make a living out of this kind of gaming, or what do you think?
So I think we're talking about two different player categories. One is like professional players, like we are hosting CSGO matches in the blockchain, and professionals are fighting. But on different case, we have games on EOS right now that you can actually invest a very little amount, and eventually playing for 1 month, maybe 1 week, you can make a fraction of money without investing anything more. You can actually earn even right now, and it will scale, I believe.
Right, that's good.
Right now, for traditional games, you can like earn a living. Either like if you're a professional player, you can go to tournaments, and that of course is like you need to have a team and you need to live in a certain like country or whatever. And if you live, for example, in like in a place that you only have internet and a laptop, it will be impossible for you to like earn money competitively. Or like you can also, I don't know, start streaming or whatever and earn money by that. It's not like necessarily that you earn like money out of the game you're playing. It's just like the ecosystem around it. And with blockchain games, you can like safely, I think, create a tournament or whatever where players can like join all around the world without the need for them to be like specifically in one place where you know they won't cheat or they won't like whatever. And also like they can like since they are the true owners of the things they're like investing their time in, they can I don't know, even sell their whole progress. For example, in crypto wars, what you could do is like just create one village, like build your village for 1 year, and if you're fed up with it, you can just sell your village to whoever wants to pay it. So that's also a way for you to make money, like but not playing anymore too.
I mean, I think people have been making money on games for 20 years. I used to play like Ultima Online and World of Warcraft and EverQuest, and people would make like their entire salaries just playing the game. But they would have to sell these items in kind of a very inefficient way. They'd go on eBay, and then they'd have to like manually sell it. There wasn't actual real marketplaces for these items. And I think the marketplaces, plus there's no central authority that can ban them from their like income source, is like really what changes with blockchain games.
Exactly. And I really see the future being, actually it's a bit scary because now, what we can expect to happen is that people their life will depend on playing games. So, and now with this kind of system, you can actually, when you die in a game, you could actually lose the asset because that's what will be part of the logic of the game. So suddenly, maybe your actual livelihood will depend on you not dying in a game. And it's yeah. So if you extrapolate, it becomes scary. I don't know to which extent it can be, but yeah.
Yeah, that's fucked up. Yeah, but it would be cool to see at least, right? Anyways, so if you have the ability to make money out of your gaming experience, then that means some people will try to exploit that with bots and automation scripts and this kind of thing. So what's your stand on this? Like, should you embrace bots and this kind of scripts, or should you ban them? Like, what would you do if you had a game, or if you have a game?
Yeah, I think it's difficult for some game. At least now, they can go away with it with skills. But the problem is AI is catching up. So it's all about, in the end, the value of the token that is earned by skill. So if the value of of the token, if it will, in the worst case, it will go as low as the value of the energy spent to build this bot and run them. But of course, it's a big problem for all the games that don't require skills.
So I think this is going to be really cool. I saw one game where they had some servers that you could play with bots, and then other servers where you'd get banned. And I think that's actually really cool because I would love, I actually used to write bots when I played MMOs. And I would love to just play on a server where everybody has bots and they can't use the real client. And I think that would be kind of like this alternate world where people could do the AI futuristic world, and then us normal people could play normal games.
Yeah, specifically on Crypto Wars, we allow players to run certain degree of automation. Obviously, you can just have a script that helps you know when you're attacked and save your army, or you can do you fully run a script that all your actions are run by a bot or an AI. Obviously, the difficult part in all of this is detecting who is doing that and who is not. Because obviously you can build a bot that behaves as a human and just copies actions and creates 1,000 villages that are actually the same and have the same actions. But the thing is, if when you create a new user, you are prompted to say, okay, I'm a normal user, I'm a user that will use some sort of automation, or I am a bot. You will get a penalty, an ELO penalty. So as a bot, you will fight against stronger human players, but the same standard category for bots. So in that scenario, obviously, if you're a bot, you will attack the weakest player in your elo range, and that player probably will be a bot. So you will end up in an ecosystem where you will have humans and bots all playing around in the same field, but the bots will play against themselves. And you as a human, you are not sure if you want to mess with a bot, or if you do, be sure you are going to beat it, because he will take revenge probably. But yeah, that's our take on that.
I think it depends on the type of a game, because, for example, Crypto Wars, so it's going to be, at least at some point, it's going to be a skill-based game, tactics-based game. So in this case, human has some kind of advantage over bots, because you can overthink the bot and so on. But if you're talking about something like MMORPG, where it's only about farming, getting the items, gathering. I create thousands of bots, I boost the market, I sell the items, I earn money. Let's do it.
Great. Okay, that's fun. Yeah, no, I think that's what's gonna happen. We're gonna have bots and people playing in the same place, and it's gonna be cool. It's like a game itself, right? Building the bot and seeing if you're gonna get caught or not.
Yeah, I told I will build a game on your game.
Yeah,
I will
yeah.
build a bot on your game.
Yeah, as soon as we launched the game, Skillmandas spawned in our group and told us he will start building bots. And it was really early, so it was fucked up, but it was fine. Anyways, so, and this is a question also more for you, Skillmandas. Is the industry growing? You have all the metrics, you're like, an open book of metrics. Do you think that the industry is growing? Do you see more daily active users? Do you see more devs working on this? What's your take?
So, short story, yes. The longest story is that I couldn't say that like Ethereum is growing something, but overall we have Ethereum, EOS, Tron, Loom, everything else. If we sum up everything, the graph is definitely going up. Simple as that.
And what, for the other guys, what metrics do you follow? Because sometimes it's hard. Like for us, I'm a business person, and when we decided to launch a blockchain gaming company, we were okay. There's no market. Like, why would I work on a product for no market? Like, no one. And then Lucho was like, okay, this is like the egg, the chicken and the egg. Like, if there are no good games for people to play, and actually to have easy access to those games, it's really hard. No one will play shitty games, right? So it's literally the chicken and the egg. What kind of metric do you look at to see if the industry is growing? Like tech, infrastructure, DAUs?
I'm a big fan of daily active users. I think that like the tech doesn't matter if you have users playing your games, and like that's all I'm focused on. I'm like, how many users can I get? If I only have so CryptoKitties at its peak only had like 1,000 daily actives, it may not even have that much. And to me, that's not a success. It was kind of a Ponzi scheme. And for me, the first real crypto game is going to be the game that has the first 1 million users on the game.
All right.
Million daily active?
Oh, no, not million daily active. Let's say million yearly active. Okay. Yeah, that will be the first game in my mind.
That's great. There are many. This is a question again about the benefits of having the blockchain, blockchain games. We talk about liquidity, like you can make money out of your game. We talk about true ownership, being able to actually own whatever you buy or acquire in-game. And then we have this fancy concept of game extensibility and interoperability. Can someone explain it as well as you can?
I'm gonna pick this one because we're big fans. I think the extensibility. So like modding is actually how most big games happen. So you look at Dota, you even look like at Half-Life 2, like it was actually like built on the Quake engine. You look at like Team Fortress, it was built on Half-Life. I think modding, now we have a next level of modding where we can have mods that run on the server. And not only do they run on the server, they can be paid. So like I could run a paid tournament inside of my game. People could gamble on your crypto wars. They were like, is this village gonna beat this village? And like, I think that's like the next level of modding that like normal game developers are not going to be able to do.
Great. So let's say any of these guys are like, you're a game developer, how do you add something to your game or to Crypto Wars or the sandbox? How do you do it? What's the way to do it?
I mean, basically you can start to use the item from another game. So, I mean, you can start CryptoKitties, for example, like you can start taking, so you check what the player have in his wallet, and then you use them in your game. That's kind of the basic interoperability. And then you can go further, like for example, Kitty Race, what they did is that they take, so each CryptoKitty has some characteristics, and you can choose what they do in your game. And what funny thing they did is that there was some characteristics which were not very popular, and they decided that this characteristic will make you fast in the game. And suddenly the market changed. These CryptoKitty who were not popular became popular because of this thing. So the beauty of it is that as a new game developer, you can decide whatever you want. And maybe it won't please the original creator, but it doesn't matter. And the benefit you get also is that you can get these people who maybe took the cheap CryptoKitties and bring you in your game.
I just want to say something kind of controversial to counterpoint is I don't think that we all focus on consumption. Oh, we're going to put our CryptoKitties in this game. But I actually think the user-generated content is way bigger. I think that like if we enable like 10,000 people to make their own little like bat or their car, I think that that's going to actually grow adoption more than just like integrating other items.
Yeah, I mean, the only reason I mentioned CryptoKitty is to provide, I guess, the context that people are. But actually, at the sandbox, that's exactly what we are building. So we are building a user-generated content platform, and that's definitely where we see it even bigger. Of course, there is few things to solve, and because of the fact that now anybody can create anything. But I definitely see the way forward as well.
Right. Then this question goes more, about the infrastructure. Like for us, for example, when we started, we were waiting on a protocol like Loom. Like we said, no one's gonna play a game if they have to download MetaMask, buy Ether, do the whole thing. It's just too much. Too much of a headache. So we were waiting at first for them. Then they are probably waiting for some other technology to come out because the industry is so green right now, so immature. So my question is, are you waiting for any particular tech or release to come out from Ethereum or from any other company, like to make the gaming ecosystem better?
So, I mean, the main thing, potentially, but as for now, I mean, for the marketplace, we want true ownership. So we need like a strong blockchain at the end. Even if maybe we'll use other technology like Plasma, for example, for transfer, we still want the item to be on a strong blockchain. But maybe, I mean, for other use case, basically we are watching the scene.
I'm gonna say, like, I think this is gonna be the first quarter where we're gonna see some real games. We're gonna see like Elemental, we're gonna see Neon District, we have Zombie Battlegrounds coming out. I think I'm finally gonna see the first generation of like real blockchain games. And I'm not personally waiting on anything. We're gonna be shipping, and I know a bunch of other people are, so I think it's gonna be an exciting quarter actually.
I think what we are waiting for is like just the most safe way to let the users stake their money into the current games, because right now, a lot of games are going to be developed and shipped away, but are they safe, or how much safe are they? So that's our question, and obviously we need someone to test it. Maybe we are going to be the ones that are going to fully test how safe is a sidechain game, but well, we don't know. We need to wait and see.
I'm waiting for Loom chains.
All right, so the burden is on your shoulders. All right, that's fine. Then, talking about the technology, do you think blockchain games could go mainstream potentially at some point? Because we see we always say, gaming and porn are the industries that push forward and are always innovating. But for example, VR is a thing that was, it was a huge buzz. Everyone was, buying headsets and everything, and now almost no one really uses those headsets. I mean, a lot of people do, but if you look at it globally, it's not a mainstream trend. Do you think blockchain gaming is going to suffer the same destiny, or could it actually go mainstream?
I know it's hard to predict things, especially in the blockchain. I think these guys are more kind of technical and can tell more about what's the future on this side. I'll just say Ready Player One.
I think they will, just because if they can get like the same user experience as a normal game, so the user don't even knows that it's running actually on a blockchain or whatever, or he has like true ownership or all these like special features of the blockchain. If the user just like plays the game and then he says at some point, oh, I have all this money in my game, and it's from like, hey, you have a lot of money, what do you want to do with it? It's yours, you can do whatever you want, and he will like say, oh fuck, this is great. But up to that point, it's just like a regular game for him. Like just like doing a bit of shilling here for us. If you go right now into loom.cryptowars.jp, you will be able to try out the game we are building on the Loom network. And the only thing you will need to do is create your village. You won't have to sign any transaction, create any user or whatever. The only thing is that your secret is stored on the browser's cache. So if you go into another computer or log in incognito, you will lose your village. It's just a demo. But yeah, it's like just try it out and see the user experience. And it's just like any other web-based game.
So I'm gonna just change the slight bit because like I think why I'm super bullish is I saw a pretty interesting statistic. So Fortnite has its own currency. If Fortnite was an ERC20 token, it would be like a top 10 token. Just that one game, right? And we can imagine that like there's just gonna become a time where like these digital currencies are just gonna be like blockchain tokens, right? And I'm so bullish on just that fact. Yeah, I just wanted to share that. So anyways.
Yeah, I mean, we have just to consider the new generation. Like, I mean, the 6, 7-year-old will start playing these games, they will earn these tokens. They are the ones who will understand the value of the keys. Then all the education part will be solved just simply by that. So, I mean, yeah, for me, I see a future where we'll not talk about blockchain games anymore. They will be games, you know.
Okay, yeah, that's great. Then there is this as when Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies started, everyone thought it was to buy drugs on the deep web or guns or whatever shitty things you can think of. Now, whenever I talk to someone about blockchain gaming, they say, "Oh, gambling," right? And they go straight to gambling. And I think there's one thing which is blockchain gaming, and then blockchain gambling. It's a completely different thing. But I think there is still like a thin line between those two. So yeah, what do you think about this?
I think that's something that will need to be tackled if there is a way to lose money by consuming too much. I think it's definitely something that we should be aware of. But as I say, blockchain kind of brings something new to the table.
So I think there's two aspects to gambling, right? There's like poker, and then there's like betting on who's going to win a Halo match, right? And I think that this is actually going to be a really interesting area where you have skill-based gaming, but there's going to be bet. We're going to all be on a Twitch stream, and we're going to be like, I'm going to bet you $5 that this guy's going to win this match or something. And I think that's where something that's blockchain is super cool because now you have like a provably fair way of like being able to do this kind of gambling without like any authorities being involved.
Yeah, for me it's more like if you do the same action 1,000 times, it should have the same outcome, like at least for the game mechanics themselves. Obviously, like for example, if I go to battle with anyone and do that like 1,000 times, it will always be the same outcome. Maybe if like, I don't know, if I defeat a boss, the only RNG I will get is the loot I get, but the final state, it will be the same. It will be I always win or I always lose. If you introduce like in a game some RNG like in the middle of that, that kind of starts like looking more like gambling because it's just like pure based luck and not skill based luck. But yeah, like that's...
Yeah, this is an interesting topic for me, especially, and why I'm bringing this up. For example, we were in a crypto games conference in Minsk, and there was not a single word about gambling, but there were a lot of gambling devs, and they were called iGaming. So that's a very thin line, just one letter, iGaming. That's how gambling is called now. I mean, that might be confusing, and yeah, I'm with you that it should not contain RNG if it's is it a game? It's on skill. If it's an RNG, it's gambling.
All right, that's pretty clear. All right, guys, it would be great if you tell us about each one of the 3 games we have here in depth. I think we all love games, so it would be great to hear at least a couple minutes of each game.
Yeah, well, Crypto Wars is a strategy game. I don't know, maybe some of you guys have played it. Like, they are all web browser games. Travian, O Game, I don't know, maybe, I don't know. It's a newer version. It's like kind of Clash of Clans. The game is like a Clash of Clans game where you build your village, you create buildings, you start like mining resources, you build an army, and you attack other players. All of this runs on smart contracts. And the fun part about Crypto Wars is that you can stake tokens or quantum dust in your village to get some boosts that will give you obviously a boost against other players. But by doing so, you are open to other players attacking you and stealing these tokens away from you. And you will always like need to have like this sort of metric that, okay, in my ELO range, how much are users staking quantum dust? So I can just be like taking advantage of that and not being like a too juicy target for other players, but obviously have some sort of advantage as well. Right now, I told you about the demo we are running, and we are planning on launching it on December 1st, like as a free-to-play open alpha game.
Cool. So we're working on this game called Zombie Battlegrounds, and it's kind of like Hearthstone on the blockchain. So like you can like have true ownership of your cards, and you can battle other players, and the entire game actually runs on a Loom blockchain. So we think that's all kind of cool, but actually what we think is more interesting is actually we're gonna have these custom game modes where like if you're a Solidity developer and you wanna change how Hearthstone works, like you wanna make a game that's only fire cards, or you wanna make a game where every turn you lose a health or you gain some mana or something like this, you can actually just upload new contracts and you can play them. Or you could even do things like, you could have a tournament that's like buy-in. Like everybody has to put in 0.1 ETH, and whoever's the winner gets all the ETH. So we think that this is actually something that's like very fundamentally different than what Blizzard can do, and that's what we're super excited. So like, you can check it out at loom.games. It's in alpha right now, and then before the end of the year, we're actually gonna do, we'll do a public launch onto the app stores.
You.
Yeah, so I never know where to start, but I mean, the sandbox is basically a way for creator to create their asset in the first place. They can, like a voxel base, so you can think of Minecraft. And so player can just, creators, players, they can start to design their asset, and then they can decide, for example, maybe this one is unique, maybe this one is limited edition, and so they control the scarcity. But then this is just the first thing, so that's what we kind of building now and open the marketplace that could potentially already be used in other games. But then the goal is to allow creators to create their own game inside that platform. And so the game is basically a Minecraft world that they create, and they decide the rules by which these assets are driven. And so what I didn't mention when the creator was building these assets is not only build the visual aspect, but it decide what are the properties. So we are still designing what it will do. We want this to be open, but not overly complex. So that and like so maybe there is 5 attributes like RPG games, and then it's a game creator that will decide what this value will have meaning into their own game. Then, I mean, we also looking at composability of, so basically, one aspect to bring scarcity. For example, one idea we are coming up with is the idea of you create an asset, there is competition going on, and then the people vote, and if you win, because you have the most interesting asset, your asset earn an NFT that is associated with it. And now the game creator can decide that all the items that have this special legendary NFT associated with them can do something special, and then we can extend this to other kind of NFT that you associate with your, and maybe it could be NFT that we didn't thought about. It could be the game creator that say, actually, if that item on a crypto war village, then suddenly other thing can happen, whatever.
That's great. Now that we know, what the games are about, we have this question on how to get non-crypto users, like non-tech savvy users or non-tech, like crypto savvy users. It's really hard. We've seen some amazing things. For example, these guys, American guys from Lucid Site, what they did was a partnership with the baseball league, the American Baseball League, and they got the Dodgers stadium. They gave like 40,000 people NFTs, which is one way of getting the technology closer to the average Joe, to say it in a way, like to normal people. Then the other great thing that we saw was these guys for the zombie game. They run their campaign in Kickstarter, not with crypto, but normal. All right. Oh. All right. Yeah. So that's also great because you're letting anyone buy with credit card, NFTs or whatever. That's great. But that's only for the start, right? Now you have to acquire, as you said, like 1 million users, 1 million gamers. How are you gonna do that?
Yeah, I mean, so for us, like what we plan first is to attract creators. And so we plan to reserve like tokens for them, so they can start to create for free, and then at the end of the day, like we are providing a game experience that we expect people to enjoy and be ready to pay for this asset, and also the game itself will be free. So that's kind of how we plan. And we obviously plan to hide. The fact that the blockchain is really to the point where you want to trade, but if you don't want, then you don't need even to know. And also, the sandbox is based on existing games that have millions of players. So we plan to kind of bootstrap that.
Great, thank you, Matt.
Yeah, obviously we wanted to get the creators, but we feel like the creators are only going to come if you already have an initial community. So like what we did was we have first our initial community that we got through Kickstarter, but what we do is we do like continual contests. Like every couple of weeks we'll like do a contest, like design a custom game mode, or send us your Halloween custom, or design a special card. And we engage our existing community, plus then we do Twitch. I think obviously everybody in this room Twitch is like the best way. Getting streamers in front of your game, like we got a whole bunch of streamers like very early access, and then that actually got us a huge amount of people like knowing about our game. And I think those are the kind of people that like how we're gonna actually get the first set of mainstream users.
Great, Lucho?
Well, yeah, for me, it's more like building a fun-to-play game. So maybe Crypto Wars, it's a great game, but it's not fun to play and it doesn't like get enough players. That's why we are a gaming studio, and as all gaming studio, they will have to grind games that most of them are not successful at all until they get a hit. So I think it's just that. It's just a matter of waiting until someone gets like a great game that it's a blockchain.
So what you say is it doesn't matter that much that it is crypto or blockchain or that you can earn money, but you have to first design a fun game, a fun to play game.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, that's probably the best.
Yeah. I think the same, and especially if you need to use MetaMask or something similar, it's a no-go. So if we have something like Zombie Battlegrounds that I've tried myself, it's not a crypto game for a casual job. It's a game. It's just a game. So you will market it the same way as a normal app.
Perfect answer. All right, this is the last question. The main idea later is that you guys can ask your questions. We have like, a second layer protocol. We have games. We have the top portal for metrics on dApps. So I'm sure you have questions. I'll let you ask them in a bit. But I'm also sure there are some game designers in the audience, or people that have an idea for infrastructure for whatever and want to to actually build this idea. So my next question is, how do you fund or finance your projects? How did you start? Did you self-fund it? Did you do an ICO? Did you Kickstarter? What did you do? Montes?
We're not really a crypto game, so not really in the topic, but we are completely bootstrapped.
All right, so self-funded.
Yeah, we as well started as self-funding. We sold the company 2 years ago, and we just been using that money. This year, we've been developing Crypto Wars. We also have like this 300 people community that anyone can apply. We are just really cherry picking the people we want to be in this community, and we only allow them to invest from 1 Ether to 10 Ether. This has been going since we launched. And all that money is like on a smart contract, we don't even touch it. And right now we are like actively finding a round of $1 million just to be able to keep going on the development of the game. Oh, and we also sold some, like we have a marketplace, there are some cards around and we sold some of them, but also that Ether is just locked in a contract, so we don't even touch it.
So I'm actually a big fan of pre-item sales. I think that like if we're gonna have a decentralized game, like ideally the players would own the game. So like the players would do a lot of the pre-funding of the game, and that's actually how we get studios on board. I think that's actually how most of these crypto games are gonna happen. I don't think like traditional equity rounds make as much sense, because if you do an equity round, you're incentivized to have a centralized game because you have different shareholders that you have to account for.
I mean, for Pixowl, in the existing company, there is a private sale going on, and there is, depending of the design of the token, there will be potentially an ICO.
All right, perfect. All right, thank you all guys. That's it for my questions at least. I'm gonna wait for yours. Anyone get a question? Yeah. Let's. So you pass it to anyone else who has a question.
You guys mentioned Twitch once. How do you see Twitch going to fit into the blockchain gaming space? Do you think we're going to have a crypto Twitch?
I mean, maybe in the short term, no, but I'm just super excited about Twitch. Like, one of the things is like, Twitch has plugins for players. Like, you could have players actually be sending blockchain transactions in the middle of the game, right? So like, a guy could actually fund his Twitch channel by saying, you can pay to mess up my game. And like, you could be like paying to mess up his game, and and it makes it really hilarious. So I think that crypto is going to fit really well into Twitch.
But if you, for instance, look at Twitch, right? They're getting 18 to 29% of every bits transaction. Twitch doesn't seem to have any incentive to integrate blockchain into that. And the extensions that people can build, you know, for those side games, you get paid in bits, and Twitch has a video over them. Do you think Twitch will open that up, or do you think this is the perfect time to think about a decentralized Twitch that will fit the decentralized blockchain gaming space?
Well, there is Referium, right? Yeah, no, I was gonna say there is like already a crypto Twitch or something like this called Referium. We haven't used it, so I'm not gonna vouch for it, but just saying there is something around.
So with the pre-item token sales and stuff like that, and with getting ERC like 721 tokens in game, I see like a problem around like devaluation of the items, since the game is ultimately responsible for the creation of those items. So I was wondering like how important do you guys see like development and running of the game to like maybe put that in the hands of the DAO or some other type of decentralized infrastructure, so that user doesn't have to worry that, you know.
Yeah, so I think this is still a ways off, but I'm super excited about this concept. I think like the next Hearthstone, and Hearthstone right now is $1 billion game. And what if you imagine that Hearthstone was its own blockchain, right? And that we owned ownership of Hearthstone with tokens. And like people could like actually control the game. Like if you controlled enough tokens, you could actually control like how the game evolves, right? And I think that's the future. Like it will end up being a DAO, but I think it will be like its own dedicated chain. And I think that's gonna how it's happened. But I'm super psyched. I think that that's like definitely the future. Maybe like 5 years off then.
2 points about the Hearthstone, I guess, zombie battlegrounds thing. There was this article that I think a couple of weeks ago ended up on like r/games about kind of like Gods Unchained, which is like another Hearthstone clone with crypto. And like one of the big criticisms that it brought up was that like Hearthstone has a lot, or I guess two. The first one being that Hearthstone has a lot of people dedicated to like figuring out what like a feature creep is kind of like basically like the meta of the game, and kind of controlling that, and that to an extent, what mitigates this like flood of like inefficient like meta discussions about like what rules of the game should be applied here and there is the fact that there's a centralized like server that says this is the new meta. Your card doesn't do what you thought it did, so deal with it. But like the second part, like how I guess within Zombie Battlegrounds, how are you guys kind of like controlling for that? Like, would it be simple? I mean, it's a little. I guess some people would argue it's cheap, but I guess like it makes sense in a lot of cases to just like literally copy like what Hearthstone's doing in terms of their like card design. Are you guys doing that, or how are you guys mitigating for the fact that like every single card or every single like feature you put in adds another complex variable to this like super changing like
Wow.
dynamic?
Okay, so that was a really hard question. For those who know, I'm gonna like break this down. So the first thing was he asked about meta, and for you to know, in a card game, like the balances between like the different factions, fire, ice, they have balances of like all the abilities, right? So I think that there's still like a lot of times a centralized dev team. So like even if you look at something like the Ethereum Foundation, sure, there's still like a core set of developers that is kind of like setting the direction. And I think something like, for us, we have a core design team that's actually designing the meta for the game. But I think what's kind of different is Hearthstone actually jumped the shark on a couple occasions where they would introduce cards that would totally break the gameplay. And there was just nothing you could do. I think what's kind of interesting is here, you could fork it on the same chain. We have the ability to do this, that you could say, look, I want to play the old version of Zombie Battleground because I think you guys actually broke the latest release. But there's still kind of a central team that's like driving it along, but then players are also kind of building their own adaptations of the game. And if one of them becomes really popular, so I don't know if any of these people play Magic the Gathering. There's like one dude that was like scratching his head. He's like, everybody's like, that's too old. But so Magic the Gathering, fans would actually would make up game modes. And then eventually they became so popular, Magic actually just printed them, right? And I think that's what's gonna happen with the blockchain, is that a bunch of fans will make their own mode, and then we'll be like, oh, that's super cool. We'll do like an official version of it that's like even better. And then the last point about just totally copying Hearthstone, I think if we just copied Hearthstone, nobody would want to play, because if you're just like a weaker version of Hearthstone, like that's not like, it's like just not it's just not going to be a very exciting game, essentially.
Yeah, something to add to that, like for example, maybe some of you guys here has played Counter-Strike 1.6. Well, Counter-Strike was like the probably most pirated game of all the time, and every server like ran its own version of the game, like from which anti-cheat version you should use to play the game. And obviously the mods were huge, like you could like play soccer, surf, like whatever you wanted in that game. I actually started coding because of that, because I ran a server of CS 1.6. So what this game, obviously it was not intended to do it, but what it created was a huge community of a lot of developers all around the world, like just creating like weird and amazing mods. And some of the biggest servers out there that were making a lot of money out of advertising or whatever, or they build like really great teams and then won tournaments, are just based on that, on a random guy just saying, hey, it will be fun just to put like a wall a bit tilted and allow you to like float around and jump and do weird shit. So that's what I'm really interested about, like blockchain games, especially. It's because if you build a blockchain game, you need to think that this is going to happen to your game. Like it will mostly definitely happen. If your game is successful, obviously. If it's shit and nobody plays it, yeah, of course, but whatever.
Okay, so as far as we know that blockchain is really expensive compared to any centralized system that we already have. To use blockchain, which kind of games should use blockchain? What are those games requirements or prerequisites of the mechanics that should be inside a game to use the blockchain? Because if they don't have these mechanics or these prerequisites, then it doesn't make sense to use the blockchain itself.
Basically, obviously, right now it's super hard to run an FPS game on the blockchain or like a WoW-like game on the blockchain because of the transactions per second. So probably the first thing you would think of is to build your game around like a certain like maximum amount of transactions a user can make per second to like avoid being super laggy. Hearthstone is a great example. Crypto is a great example. Like creating NFTs, it's a great example. Obviously, they want like have every player move on the blockchain. That obviously doesn't make sense. But I think that the limitations are like other. They're like getting blurry, like from what they were a year ago, especially like with layer 2 scalability solutions. But yeah, like the fun part is that it's I think designing a game around that limitations and making it fun. But probably for me, it's like transactions per second. Like that's the like best one.
I mean, yeah, I think it's also come down to the definition of blockchain games, which I mean, at the beginning I was the only one saying that actually I have an open definition of it, and I think, I mean, because I think blockchain give already benefit to centralized game, where the only time where you will pay gas will be to trade, in which case it could make sense depending on the value of the thing. So that's another use case.
There is one. Okay, that's better. There's one thing I would add, and it's that if we have this same panel in like 6 months, the answer is going to be completely different. Like last DevCon, we started our company almost, I would say almost in Cancun for last DevCon. And every time we said, oh, we're gonna build blockchain games, everyone was like, oh, but the gas fees, and oh, there's no way to play a game in a mobile game. Yeah, I'm gonna go. And anyway, so now you have, for example, 1 year after, 1 year after the last DevCon, you have a way to play and not pay gas, which is amazing. And now you have, for example, Trust Wallet and many other wallets that have a browser, and you can actually, if you make a responsive game, you can play it there. So it's been only 1 year, right? And it's like a completely different situation. So I would wait a bit, and maybe the next time you'll be able to build whatever you want. I don't know. Yeah.
I was curious to learn more about the forking of games, given that so the UI, as I understand, for Zombie Battleground or something like that is built by the gaming company. Does the gaming company open source that? And yeah, like what would that process actually look like?
Yeah, so that's a good question. So we originally, I wrote an article about this like 8 months ago, and I originally thought that people would fork the blockchain, like you would fork Bitcoin. But I thought that that's way too complicated. So I think what's going to happen is users are going to fork the contract on the same chain. So like, you like 0.26 version of Zombie Battleground. You're going to make 2.26 with some modifications. Or the game's just going to have extensibility. So like we have actually custom contracts where you can just like customize the game without being tied to a specific release of the game. But I think that the second part of your question was really about the open sourcing of the client. And I think it matters from game to game. So this is where I really am going to be advocating people to do raises in the beginning and have the community own it. So like I think the biggest hesitation for people is I open source my client, I don't have a good monetization mechanism after that, or it limits my monetization. If you actually sell a portion of the ownership of the software to the end users, then you've pre-sold it. So then like that actually eliminates that question. And then it's a lot easier for game designers to want to open source their source code.
Just to add to that, I think the most difficult part about forking a game is the IP. Basically, because I don't know, with whatever game, you cannot like fork away and just do like a weird sex version of the game because you will be using the IP of like a company. But if you get these rules in place, then obviously like users will be able to fork your game, or maybe it won't be like Crypto Wars, I don't know, on space or whatever. It can be Crypto Wars on any other settings, like playing with ponies, or I don't know. It's like up to the user. But yeah, IP is one of the biggest issues here.
I mean, I think the interesting thing about true ownership is really redefining what it means to own a digital item. and one of them is basically that you own it as you own anything in the world, which means, I mean, if you want to put your CryptoKitty into a sex game, that's up to you.
Yeah, I really want to agree with this. So like, I'm actually a big advocate of this. I think what CryptoKitties did and with their Nifty license, I think their Nifty license is total bullshit. I think it kind of goes against everything that the blockchain stands for. So like, I think that like, if we actually have real decentralized game, if somebody takes my game and they put like pornographic cards into the game, I shouldn't be able to stop that. And that's when I know that we've actually built like a really decentralized game.
I would say I agree with that vision, like in the long term or like philosophically. But whenever you pitch a big company one of these games, their first thing is, okay, how do I know that, you tell me anyone can, game extensibility or whatever, they can do a side quest where they would use my IP. How do I stop that? And they, many of these big brands or like, soccer clubs, like this really huge IPs, they won't work with blockchain games just because of this. So, it's, yeah, I don't know. I agree, but it's... All right, any other questions, guys?
With the advent of Gitcoin, have you guys thought about funding open source development through like unique in-game items? Something I've thought about, thought would be really cool, especially since you have this whole dev community that's really into this stuff.
Yeah, basically it's up to the creators to decide if they can self-organize using these new technologies and they should go for it.
Caesar. It's like an online casino platform, but they have like trading cards that give you certain power-ups in their casino games, and they sold those as NFTs on their fundraise. Obviously, that's the perfect model. Yeah. What's it called? Zephyr.
Yeah, Zephyr is it's very interesting concept. It's basically Ethereum games that are based on a random number generator, and you are playing against a smart contract. You are not playing against another person. And I'm working right now on a game where how do you establish communication on peer-to-peer basis? Let's say I want to I want to gamble with you. You want to place a bet, I want to place a bet, and we want to see who won based on some guess. Let's say I want to guess that I have a number in my mind, and you need to guess which number I have. So the challenge with this approach do on Ethereum is I want to make sure that we won't I make a proposal somewhere on I cannot make this proposal on Ethereum because if I send a transaction on Ethereum and then in 5 minutes I'm like, oh yeah, nobody wants to play with me, I just want to go home. And that means I will have to close the channel, close the game. I don't want to do that. I just want to send a message to all players in the game saying, all right guys, I want to play with someone. Is anybody available? So I think there is a part maybe that requires a server-side communication, but maybe if anybody has any suggestions, how do you make this peer-to-peer communication where I can create a message, and people who is not online can also again, go to the URL website and also fetch the message from the previous created sessions. I don't know if I.
You sign a message, and then you first deposit some amount in some smart contract, and then you sign a message saying that I'm playing if you put the signature into the.
The problem is where do you store it? You don't want to open up. You don't want to waste your gas and money.
No, you just sign a message offline.
And where do you store this message?
You publish it. If you want, you want some specific player, you send it to him. If you want anybody, you can just publish it to whatever channel. It doesn't need to be secret if you want to publish it.
Yeah. You probably want to use IPFS for that, maybe. Just obviously you will need a client for all the other players that are listening to transactions.
The problem with IPFS is that if I upload something to IPFS, I want like the same hash, like to make
Yeah,
an
so
update.
you probably need you either need to use the sidechain or you need to use, you probably ultimately have to use a sidechain or like a chain that's gasless, essentially, or you have to pay the gas. That's like your two options.
Also, you can do something like BitTorrent or like blockchain. Those also work.
So when you mention side chains, could you be specific?
So there's a bunch of L2s. Like obviously I'll plug my own, this is Loom, but then there's a lot of competitors. Like I think Cosmos is coming out there this week. There's quite a few. Like there's obviously EOS. There's probably half a dozen, and then maybe you could even use state channels. So there's like Celery and Liquidity Network and stuff like that.
Is Loom network ready for developers to test?
Yeah. So these guys actually have their test app right now, and you can actually go run it. Zombie Battlegrounds is running on Loom, so you can download that. If you come to our dev site, lumx.io/developers, like you can download it, install it, run it.
Okay.
Yeah. I plugged him in the audience. He's like my show, actually.
Let me stand up. So with blockchain games, I guess if you encode the logic of the game on the chain, the game kind of has a sort of rigid sort of structure to it. I mean that's common, but what do you guys think about bots where you can have someone can build a bot that just watches? Let's say it's a game where there's some kind of in-game economy or something, and you have a bot that just watches and basically when certain conditions are met, it just executes, and it executes faster than any human player could do it. I don't know if you want to comment on that.
Yeah, I think it's kind of interesting. So I have two different examples. So one, we have like a marketplace, like these guys do too. And like you have items, so like if you have a sword or like a card or something, somebody approached me and said that they wanted to build liquidity for items on a marketplace. And I thought that was really interesting, where like they would play a market maker where they would buy up and sell swords based on the market conditions, and they would actually provide liquidity to an illiquid network. And that's a case where a bot is actually really useful compared to like where you wouldn't have a bot. The case where I think you're actually trying to refer to is like in the game. And I think that that's where like you have some kind of civil resistance mechanisms that you prevent bots, or you just isolate bots to very specific servers or like very specific instances. Anybody else want to comment on that one?
So, kind of teeing off of the cyber resistance or civil resistance, like,
yeah.
Do you think, pre-selling tokens for games and all this stuff, I mean, it sounds great in concept, but from a mass adoption standpoint, like, if I want to go play Counter-Strike, I don't need to go upload my passport to Enfido and do a whole KYC process, right? So, what do you think is the future for, tokenization of games in a way that's AML compliant and actually is adoptable by a large community?
Right. So I think the KYC and AML requirements are kind of somewhat an American thing, but basically if the game is live, generally the rule of thumb is if you have a working product, you don't need KYC to sell the tokens. If they're like legitimately, so if Valve came today and they had Counter-Strike tokens and you could buy ownership in Counter-Strike, there wouldn't have to be KYC. Right. But then they also you wouldn't need to own the Counter-Strike tokens to play. You would only need the tokens if you wanted to control let's say that the governance of the chain, or you wanted to run nodes, or you wanted to change how Counter-Strike worked, then you could own the Counter-Strike
Sounds like a
token.
DAO token, basically.
Yeah, and I think that's how a lot of games will ultimately grow towards.
Gotcha.
Just one more thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. One thing we thought of, this is something we thought a lot about, because if you want to have mainstream adoption, you just can't expect the user to do KYC, buy Ether or anything else. So for us, Crypto Wars is going to be free to play. You can just go and play as you play Clash of Clans, and at some point, if you get tech savvy enough or crypto savvy enough, then you can buy the token and play for money. But if not, it's just going to be just one more game. Yeah.
How do you see
Sorry, one more answer.
Getting back to the tokens, I'll talk again about EOS. I'm not chilling EOS. I'm Ethereum supporter, so just EOS and gambling. So that's how gambling app developers get funds. So they are building such a system that when you gamble, you get tokens back, and this way you will become a, let's say, shareholder, and in the future you're getting profits from that. It might work for games. Let's think about it.
Yeah, the only danger is if you have expectation of profit, you can run yourself afoul of securities laws. But but I mean, I think that's ultimately how it should be. And then you had the other question.
Yeah. So I think crypto in its current state is a great way to get games to maybe 5,000 users. But to really get to adoption, you really need to get to the point where you're using Google Pay or Apple Pay in order to just use a credit card to get, and where people won't even know that they're using crypto, right? Have you seen what are the most promising, what are the most promising paths that you guys have seen for credit card and seamless onboarding?
So I'll just say for our game, and then I'll let you guys open up. Is right now we accept credit cards for our game. So we accept credit cards, and once we actually go on the Play Store, we're going to actually accept in-app purchases. The one thing we are going to do is we're going to have 30-day restrictions. Like if you buy something with a credit card or you buy an app, you can't move it off of the sidechain, or you can't trade it with another person for 30 days. Just simply because the crypto is once you have it, you lose it, and that's just one limitation we've added in our case.
We'll do Wednesday.
So is that a plasma thing, or there's a 30-day contest period? Or?
So I mean, in our chain, we put that as part of the smart contract.
Okay.
If you buy something with a credit card, you have a special lock. It's in your account, you own it, but as long as there's not a chargeback in 30 days.
Yeah, so don't call up the credit card company and reverse it, and then
yeah. But if you bought with ETH or you bought with Bitcoin, then you just
How do you convert it to ETH or some other currency?
So either through the market, a marketplace, essentially, you can sell your items.
So there's an oracle kind of thing for.
Yeah. So for us, we have a plasma cache, and then we have a transfer gateway.
So you really custody the private keys and everything when they make it.
So it doesn't matter. So you don't have to hold their private keys because the items live on the chain, right? And there's smart contracts that dictate how the items work. So the smart contracts can have a rule that says if this person bought with a credit card, they have a 30-day period where the chain can revoke that ownership.
Yeah, I mean, I was actually, basically there is also other business model where actually the user doesn't need to buy anything. So you could potentially create a game where that the player earn token by their skills. And I think that's actually the future, at least one of the future of gaming, where the new generation will have this token in the first place. And so you will not need a bank anymore, you will not need to go through a centralized exchange anymore.
Just one more thing, I think the problem is not credit cards, but app stores. So we'll see app store regulation in the next year, hopefully, and we'll see what they say. There are already workarounds, but let's see what they actually dictate, whenever this gets more traction.
I know there was a thing with Coinbase Wallet where they had to take down this app or this NFT game that they were promoting because the NFT by paying for that NFT with crypto in Coinbase Wallet, they were circumventing in-app purchases too. So to that second point, so with the first question, are you guys just kind of just taking on that risk for the next 2 months for the?
Yeah. So just to answer the two questions. One, we are taking a certain amount of risk with credit card, but because they're 100%, they're essentially 100% profit to some degree, right? I mean, if they're buying it from us, they're buying cards from us. We wouldn't take a credit card for a random marketplace transaction where we'd have to give it to another person. Then the second question was about the Coinbase wallet. So in the mobile versions, we're not going to let you pay with ETH or Bitcoin. You have to do an in-app purchase. Like that's basically the rules. So like if you want to be on the Google Play Store, or you want to be on the App Store, you have to use their payment mechanisms. If you try to circumvent them with crypto in the app, then they're gonna probably eventually shut you down if they catch you. But as long as you let them take their cut when it's an app, but then when it's not an app, you can take crypto essentially.
I'm sorry, just one thing. Maybe the OpenSea guys have something to say about this, right?
Yeah.
Because you do that, so.
We don't take credit cards right now.
Oh, you don't? Okay. Just,
Okay. What about like Trust Wallet? Does that count as an app that needs its own purposes?
Yeah, so they actually have been running into a lot of issues. So Trust Wallet and Coinbase Wallet, because they're letting you buy things in dApps with crypto, Apple's like, we're not getting our 30%.
So
Yeah,
like,
it's basically like Chrome, but you know, it's an app.
yeah, the solution at least for Trust, when we talked with the founder, was to just not feature any of the apps, of the apps that let you buy, you know, stuff, but you can access them on the browser, but they just can't feature them. Or at least they couldn't, because we've been featured now.
So one of them was telling me they actually had this thing where during the app review they would hide that feature. Like it would be like they would have like a timer that would say like 2 weeks after like a build. Exactly.
Yeah, literally, yeah.
And then all of a sudden when it was in the app store it would actually show up. The button would show up.
But I think that like what we can definitely conclude is that rules are not clear at all, and we are all like just doing like workarounds and stuff. I think, yeah, we have to wait for the for the actual regulation.
Minus that, don't do that. The thing you mentioned where you like hide the feature.
Oh, well, yeah, I mean, that's not me. That's I was just saying, I'm not going to say who told me this, but somebody told me that they're doing this in their app because they were trying to get around this.
That's a terrible idea. For God's sakes, please don't do that.
They're like getting back to the App Store.
Yeah, go ahead.
So I used to work for Tencent and Q earlier this year, and one thing I learned from working for a large Chinese games company is they have a reputation for building on other people's innovation. And sorry, I'm stereotyping, but I get away with it. Now, when you talk about you can actually fork the game and slap different IPs, change the attributes and the numbers a little bit. Do you see or are afraid that game developers, will soon lose to people who are better at building or designing free-to-play games and better at games operation, which is like a whole profession in Asia that just doesn't really exist in the West? You see that any innovation will soon be the hard and monetized for other people.
To me, I just came back from Shanghai for like a month, and there were so many things I never heard about here, and they were happening there. Like for example, like Crypto Puppies was huge. Like they showed me it was literally the same thing. Like the art was just the same, but puppies, and they had all these clones that or at least I haven't heard before about. Yeah, everything was cloned. But I think it's like two separate markets or something. I don't even know. I think it's whoever gets it's all about convenience. Like if you make it more convenience, as Tencent did, like with their private blockchains, even if it is not what I would like to, I wouldn't like the industry to be all like private blockchains and everything. But I think it comes down to to convenience. Like if you do it really easy for the user to to play it, even if CryptoKitties was the first and maybe better or innovative, then if they do the clone and it's just easier to play, maybe they just adopt it.
I mean, at the end, it's good for the player, so it's not. Yeah.
Yeah, so I actually have a couple of opinions. So like we were actually at Game Joy this year. We were speaking at Game Joy, which is basically the E3 of China. It makes E3 look like a little small show. It's like 10 times as large. I mean, the gaming industry in China is super highly competitive. And I would say that that's not an area that they're actually super knockoff. It's not like the electronics business. Like, there's actually tons of innovation. There's tons of games. It's unbelievable market. So like competing in China is already like insanely difficult. Like we're not even gonna bother. Like it's so difficult. But as far as the knockoff stuff is like totally the rip-off. I think that's where like pre-funding. So like I think if you can sell the ownership and like you've already made your money. Like let's say that like we didn't, but like if you raised like $3 million or something and you covered your entire dev cost up front because players own the items, then you've eliminated the risk. And if somebody tries to fork you or clone you, you've already eliminated this and you're already on the upside. And if there's like 10,000 people that actually own your game, they're not incentivized to go with the fork, right? They're incentivized to like maintain the primary one. And I think that's why like Ethereum and Bitcoin, sure there's Bitcoin Cash, but there's not like 100 Bitcoins that have been successful, right? I think that like it's just gonna be like one version of your game, maybe two versions of your game.
Sorry, and there is one funny thing in this industry that you can actually say, okay, I'm gonna do the crypto puppies. If you send a crypto kitty, we kill it and we give you a crypto puppy, right? That's something you can actually do, and some games did it. So it's they can not only clone you, but they can actually kill your whatever you did to make them be alive.
Yeah, I think that's a good example. And it's like in Japan, the anime industry, you can actually make fake animes with original IP in Japan, and it's like totally legal industry, and like you can sell them in stores, and but it just means that all anime just sells like 10 times as much. So I don't know. I'm not actually too worried about it in that sense.
So to talk about key management, like as far as users and their control over the keys, how do you guys see that becoming the norm? Like, is it going to be like everybody's going to be in MetaMask, or are you all going to be like blockchain.info style wallets?
Yeah, so I kind of see this as there's going to be two ways it's going to happen. At first, there's going to be like centralized custody. So you think of like Coinbase, Binance, like how centralized exchanges do now, where they're actually managing your keys. I think that's the first step, where users don't know. But then ultimately, once that kind of happens, then I think we're going to see decentralized key management, where there's already algorithms where you could split up a key in like several ways and have multiple decentralized parties have portions of that key and then recombine it. So like right now the consumers don't care, they're not going to be savvy. So one party doing the custody I think makes a lot of sense. But in the future doing decentralized custody of private keys is going to be like, I just don't see like my grandma holding her own private keys. Like that's just not going to happen. Right?
So are you saying like in Loom, for example, like the delegates of the deposit chain would essentially do like a Schneer secret sharing scheme or something? Or?
No. So the Loom chain itself it doesn't have the idea of key management, just like Ethereum has no idea of key management, right? So Loom as a company, we actually sell custody service. Like we let end users, we'll manage private keys of end users.
It's like a KMS wrapper or something.
Exactly. But then like other people, there's nothing stopping like a third party from just doing their own.
Specifically on that point, you should definitely look into like universal login.
I was going to mention that. I mean, yeah, there's definitely a solution already to do without custody. And now, especially, I mean, Status, for example, is looking at a hardware wallet, which is basically a credit card. And so it's a nice way to actually distribute, because suddenly you can, because they have a PIN number, so you can actually start to give to your, I mean, we are not there yet, but you can start to give to your friend and family, and you are not risking anything because they need to know the PIN number. But then when you start to lose your key, then you can come to them and say, give me my card, and you, as you say, you need several of them to recover your key. And still, I think grandma could be happy with a card that she gives to her.
Yeah, specifically the cool way to use universal login, like with the identity contract, is that like how my company is going to do it is that like we'll actually create the identity contract. So you still have, at first you have like centralized control over the account, but the user can then decentralize their account anytime they want. So that's another cool. And then you just use an ENS name to log in.
Right, and I think this is something you're going to see. I think EOS has this, and then we're going to be doing this, is where the public address is not necessarily the owner, that there's essentially, there'll be like if you use Steam it works like this. There's an account that owns assets, And then over time, the public address that owns those assets could change, and it's decentralized from the private key, so they could shift ownership very easily.
Right, we have to, let's say we can do one more question and we have to wrap up because it's almost 9, I think. So last question. Come on.
So the proposal to use pre-sales to sort of fund the developer's incentives here, to protect you on the front end, I guess I'd be concerned that as soon as you get a crypto Fortnite, as soon as you get a massively successful blockchain game, you're going to have a massive amount of speculation going into those pre-sales. And then you essentially have a population of people that own your token that don't care about the gameplay, that don't care about the community, that are there for the money aspect of it. How do you guys foresee dealing with that challenge?
Honestly, I'm not as worried. So this has kind of happened in a lot of industries. So you look at comic books. Comic books, oddly enough, are an item that has been fueled by speculation. So when a new comic book character comes out, literally people will buy like tens of copies of it because they're hoping that that character will come out. And it helps fund these new characters. And every so often they'll get lucky and they'll like make their, they'll make their money back. But I think there's always a bit of speculation whenever you have kind of new industries coming about. And I think it's too small account healthy.
Well, one of my rules when buying games is never buy a pre-sale. So basically, on Crypto Wars, what you would do is just try to bootstrap your game as much as you can with your own money or raising funds like externally or whatever, and then only then when you have your game running, allow players first to freely play your game, and then to buy tokens when they're advanced enough in the game that they understand what they're buying. And that way you limit a bit the speculation.
One other thing is when we started, so as soon as we started to form this community of 300 people that we thought it actually happened, that they helped us do everything, as I told you, like review code, test the game, marketing stuff, translation, literally everything. When we launched the form to apply to buy the token, like 99% of the people we got was just a speculator. Actually, just yesterday we got, so the form says, please tell us how you're going to add value other than the ether you're providing. You can help us with this, and there is a huge list. And the guy typed in money, like he wants money. That's it. That kind of people we're not accepting right now. But I think that's important in the early community to not have people just saying like when ICO, when Moon, that kind of shit. It's better to have at the beginning like a really game focused community. But then whenever you launch the game and there is already like like at least I don't know like 1,000 players or a couple hundred, then it's gonna be what's gonna be. Like you can really control it, and that's the fun part of it too.
So I just want to give a counterpoint because this is I think VCs are an interesting model here, where like VCs are speculators, right? And they help fund lots and lots of companies that end up actually being very successful. But then tons of them are just really not. So like, granted, like a lot of our best investors were the people that actually added value other than money. But there's still some value to getting the money.
No, absolutely. What I'm saying is it's gotta be the right time. As soon as we launched, literally 1 week after we launched, it was like the bull days, like December or November last year. We had only like a landing page online, and we got this email from one really big VC in the States offering $2 million. And I worked in the traditional VC industry, and I worked like in other startups that were not crypto, and I said like, okay, this is definitely not healthy. They didn't even know us, like no idea who we were. It was just a landing page with our faces and like a super small description. So I think it's great to accept money from VCs. It's just about timing. Like we didn't want to have something so like someone so stupid that would invest $2 million in someone he doesn't know. It's just.
Oh, I agree. Well, so let's just say that 2017 hopefully was a very irregular year.
Yeah, it's gonna happen again. I think it's gonna happen again at some point. It's just cycles.
Can I just chip in like one additional question around money?
Yeah.
How do you guys feel about putting in a pricing function
that is an evergreen pricing function. So let's say every time an NFT changes hands, 10%, 5% of that transaction price goes into either treasury or it goes towards the initial developer for a certain amount of time to recover, let's say, some sort of investment, or just have a treasury development.
It's technically not possible, because if you have true ownership, you should be able to change your address. So you're not going to do that on someone who is transferring his item to another address.
So you can do this. So the engine coin guys are actually promoting this, where they have this feature in their smart contracts. I have to tell you that I really, really hate this. I really believe that if there's a transaction cost every time I use it, then I don't actually own it. That I'm just borrowing it from you, and it just happens to be in a smart contract.
Well, I mean, you would still profit from the value increase. It's just that you don't get the full 100% upside of the value increase. There's some sort of cost associated with keeping, maybe keeping the platform alive, right? Because you could make a case that this goes into, another smart contract, and it's like a treasury, and it kind of funds the development.
I think that there are different ways to fund the platform, and I understand that that's actually a different problem. Is keeping funds for the development team and the platform to run. But the items themselves, I think that they need to be they should be unencumbered. Right. Yeah.
Yeah, you do that through the marketplace.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's why I went to cold vault. I don't want to pay you a fee just to do that. But if you're running the exchange, you can take whatever fee you want.
Yeah. So you could run the default marketplace, and 90% of the people are probably going to start off at your marketplace, right? And that's probably how you could.
But if I just wanted to build a game on a marketplace, right, then whoever owns the marketplace profits from that, but I don't.
So a lot of the marketplaces will actually co-brand with you and do that with you. Actually, I think that guy's sitting next to you to talk to you about that.
And there are also so many new ways of making money with crypto games that at least this is our personal view, and what you said could be completely fine. But I wouldn't risk true ownership or this new super powerful concept. Having all these revenue streams, you can sell skins or any kind of NFTs, you can sell your token, you can literally take a fee of whatever you do, in-game trades, or there's so many possibilities. So yeah. Anyways, thank you all for coming, and we can stay and have beer, but yeah. Cool.